Imagine standing in the center of the Inalfi Arena in Turin, Italy, watching Roman Reigns drop the absolute hammer on Jacob Fatu to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. The TV broadcast fades out with the original Bloodline celebrating, the Usos draping the Ula Fala around the neck of the only tribal chief, and Solo Sikoa staring daggers from the front row. On your screen at home, that is where the story pauses. But for the thousands of fans sitting inside that roaring arena, the real drama was only just getting started. The moment the red light on the main camera blinked off, the atmosphere in that building completely shifted from a scripted sports entertainment spectacle to an eerie, tense reality check. What happened next was a masterclass in post-match storytelling, mixed with a very real medical scare that left the ringside area in absolute shambles. When you watch a match like Tribal Combat, you expect violence. You expect tables to break, steel steps to fly, and toolboxes to be weaponized against human flesh. But when the dust settled in Italy, the aftermath of that absolute car wreck of a main event revealed a side of the Bloodline saga that WWE didn't show you on the live stream. If you think the match itself was chaotic, wait until you hear about the untelevised footage of the medical staff rushing the ring, the bizarre behavior of the Bloodline members, and the pure, unadulterated panic written all over the face of Paul Heyman. Let's start with the immediate scene inside the squared circle the second the show went off the air. While a televised broadcast gave us a glorious shot of Roman Reigns standing victorious, his body was utterly spent. The man had just gone through a literal war. If you look closely at the fan cam footage leaking out from the arena, the first thing that catches your eye isn't the champion, but rather the absolute devastation left in the wake of Jacob Fatu. The Samoan werewolf was not moving. Now, we all know Fatu is a genetic freak who treats his body like a disposable stunt vehicle, but the toll of that specific Tribal Combat match was visibly distinct. As soon as the camera stopped rolling, a small army of WWE medical officials and trainers scrambled down the entry ramp. This wasn't the typical two guys in polo shirts pretending to check a pulse routine we see during a standard television angle. A team of at least 4 medical professionals sprinted to the ringside area, carrying ice packs, neck collars, and medical bags. They immediately converged on Jacob Fatu, who was slumped against the remnants of the corner turnbuckle iron that Roman had exposed earlier in the match. The physical toll on Fatu's right hand was the immediate point of concern for the ringside doctors. Remember, during the match, Roman Reigns took a heavy steel toolbox from underneath the ring and repeatedly smashed it directly into Fatu's hand against the steel steps to neutralize that devastating Tongan death grip. In the untelevised footage, you can see the medical team immediately trying to stabilize Fatu's arm. Fatu, staying entirely in character, or perhaps genuinely feeling the agonizing effects of a 30-minute brawl, swatted the first trainer away with a wild, feral glare. The arena fans caught this on video, capturing the exact moment the lead official had to step in and forcefully tell Fatu to stay down so they could evaluate the damage. It was a stark reminder that while the outcomes are predetermined, the concrete, the steel, and the toolboxes are entirely unforgiving. While the medical drama was unfolding on one side of the ring, the dynamic within the original Bloodline was taking a bizarre turn. Jimmy and Jey Uso, who had just spent the final moments of the broadcast celebrating with Roman, immediately broke character just enough to look genuinely concerned. Jey Uso was seen pacing back and forth along the ringside apron, looking down at Fatu with a facial expression that screamed genuine worry rather than storyline animosity. In wrestling, there is a fine line between selling a brutal match and reacting to a legitimate injury, and for a few minutes in Turin, the crowd was left guessing which one they were witnessing. Hey, if you are loving this deep dive into the hidden moments of the Bloodline War, do me a massive favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to WrestleCore, and tap that notification bell right now. We cover everything the cameras try to hide, and you definitely do not want to miss our next breakdown. Back to the action in Italy. Let's talk about the Wiseman. If there is one person whose facial expressions deserve an Emmy Award, it is Paul Heyman. Throughout the match, Heyman was positioned near the commentator's desk, clutching his heart like a man watching his entire life savings ride on a single spin of a roulette wheel. When the show went off the air, Heyman didn't join the Usos and Roman in a triumphant march to the back. Instead, he remained frozen at ringside. Fan footage shows Heyman staring directly at the medical staff working on Jacob Fatu. The look on Heyman's face was a complex mix of absolute horror and calculated calculation. It was the face of a manager who realized that the monster they tried to tame might actually be broken, or worse, completely unhinged beyond repair. As Roman Reigns slowly made his way to his feet, leaning heavily on the ropes for support, Heyman didn't run to hand him the title belt. He just kept staring at Fatu. At one point, Roman had to physically grab Heyman by the shoulder to snap him out of his trance.
The interaction was brief, but it spoke volumes about the underlying tension that continues to cook beneath the surface of this family feud. Meanwhile, out in the crowd, the psychological warfare was reaching a boiling point. Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Tala Tonga did not leave their seats when the camera stopped filming. They remained planted in the front row, completely motionless, acting like a trio of gargoyles watching the destruction of their empire. The broadcast showed Roman pointing at them and promising they were next, but the untelevised footage captures what happened right after that threat. Solo Sikoa slowly stood up, leaned over the barricade, and locked eyes with Roman Reigns. There was no screaming, no gesturing, and no typical wrestling theatrics. It was just a cold, dead-eyed stare that lasted for nearly 2 full minutes, while the ring crew began the process of cleaning up the debris around them. The crowd in Italy noticed this prolonged standoff and started a massive chant, splitting the arena right down the middle between the original tribal chief and Solo's modern iteration of the faction. The sheer volume in the building was massive, yet neither Roman nor Solo broke character for a single second.
It felt less like a wrestling show ending and more like the tense intermission before a literal gang war erupts.
As the medical team finally managed to assist Jacob Fatu to his feet, the real storytelling genius of the night took place. Under the strict rules of tribal combat, the loser of the match was bound by family law to officially serve and obey the winner. The stipulation stated that Fatu would be forced to acknowledge Roman Reigns on the following night's episode of Monday Night Raw. Because of this, the way Fatu left the ringside area was crucial. He didn't just walk to the back with the trainers. Jey Uso, acting as the enforcer of Roman's will, stepped down from the apron and pointed toward the curtain. In the fan-captured videos, you can see Jey explicitly directing a hesitant, limping Fatu to start moving toward the back ahead of the victorious group. Fatu looked like a captured prisoner of war. His head was bowed, his right hand was cradled against his chest, and his massive frame was hunched over in defeat. Every single step he took looked like an internal battle between his fierce, independent nature and the ancient family traditions that now bound him to Roman service. Roman Reigns followed closely behind, flanked by Jimmy Uso. The champion was bleeding from a small cut near his eye, and his shoulders were covered in white tape from a pre-existing condition that the brutal match certainly didn't help. He didn't raise the title high above his head like he usually does. Instead, he kept it tucked tightly under his arm, looking less like a celebratory champion and more like a mob boss who had just successfully defended his territory but knew the war was far from over. The walk up the ramp was agonizingly slow. The Italian fans were throwing up the ones in the air, creating a sea of fingers pointing to the sky as the head of the table marched past. But Roman wasn't looking at the fans. His eyes were glued to the back of Jacob Fatu's head, ensuring that his newest servant didn't try to make a sudden move or slip away into the shadows. It was a masterclass in visual storytelling that set the stage perfectly for the absolute chaos that would follow on Monday Night Raw. What makes this untelevised footage so fascinating is how it highlights the sheer physicality these athletes endure for our entertainment. We watch these massive premium live events on premium networks, enjoying the crisp camera cuts, the perfectly timed commentary, and a dramatic lighting. But when all of that production value is stripped away, you are left with the raw reality of the sport. You see the sweat dripping off the ropes. You hear the actual groans of pain that don't get picked up by the directional microphones. And you see the genuine concern on the faces of the performers when a spot goes slightly awry. The battle in Turin was a definitive turning point for the Bloodline saga. By defeating Jacob Fatu in such a violent fashion, Roman Reigns didn't just retain a gold belt, he successfully reasserted his dominance over the most dangerous weapon Solo Sikoa had in his arsenal. But as the fan footage proves, that victory came at a massive cost. The physical toll on Roman's body, the psychological damage visible on Paul Heyman, and the ominous, lingering presence of Solo Sikoa in the front row all suggest that this victory might be a temporary shield against an impending storm. Before we wrap this up, if you want to stay ahead of the game and know exactly what happens behind the scenes in WWE, make sure to show some love.
Drop a like on this video, hit subscribe to join the WrestleCore family, and smash that bell icon so you never miss an episode. We appreciate every single one of you who hangs out with us to talk wrestling.